The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Good morning, Chip.
Good morning, CJ. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk.
How are you today?
It is really cold out there. Okay. But I hope everybody's staying warm. This is the beginning of the Arctic freeze in between snowstorms, and you know, we don't have much to do except sit around and pay attention to what's going on in the city. So. Again, we have things on the horizon, and we have things to talk about.
Well, I have one that's very interesting.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Because, and I definitely have to talk about this because it appears that Mayor Will Flanagan has possessed the body of Paul De Silva. Paul De Silva now has a blue light on his vehicle. And his statement is, I'm a city councilor. I can have this. I don't know. I thought that you couldn't do that. Even when the mayor had it, I didn't think he could do it.
No,
so now Paul De Silva has one.
I think that's prohibited. You can't have blue lights. You can't have light bars to impersonate police officers. I don't care if you're a city official or not. You can't have, you know, blue lights and you know, I question the mayor having it too, but you know, the fact is that rather than dressing up his car with blue lights, he should pay more attention to showing up at the city council and doing more than voting present. You know, he's been persona non grata as far as being an active councilor for his entire term. So, you know, does it surprise me that he's kind of like our former mayor that likes to play? You know, he had a little jacket for every department, our former mayor. And speaking of our former mayor, he was cited.
Uh-oh.
He was cited Wednesday evening at Foxwoods with none other than our former corporation counsel, wandering around Foxwoods. I guess he's looking for that job he wanted as the lawyer, but he was cited. So he has not left the nation. He has not left the country or the state. You know, he actually did leave the state Wednesday. He was in Connecticut, but the fact is he is in the area. There has been a Flanagan sighting, but you know, here we are again with the city, and we're looking at financial issues. The city council will be talking about removing over $3 million, 3.3, I believe, and change. From the surplus revenue account, which I didn't even know we had a surplus. They're always saying we're broke, but I didn't realize we had like $4 million, you know, hidden away somewhere that we could use. So
that's the
our
free
reserve,
cash.
surplus reserve fund that nobody knew about when they were all crying about we've got to gut the health care, we've got to raise taxes, we've got to raise fees because we've got no money. Now miraculously, as always, money appears.
Well, you know, Chip, that's the free cash. That's the stuff that we get at the end of every year because the city of Fall River, our city council, our mayors have overtaxed us. That's where it comes from. And here's, you know, now that we're talking about budgets, because I was going to hold off on this, there are allegations. You know, I have to say allegations here.
Allegations.
That certain financial advisors to the city are recommending that the city look at receivership. Now, if I remember correctly, you and I spoke about receivership several times over the past year and a half or so.
Yeah.
And we actually said that we were on the verge of that, and Moody's has already downed our credit rating to reflect that. And from what I understand from my interviews with various individuals in the City Hall and the City Council, I'm going to quote them, we cannot nor will we support receivership because then we lose control of the budget.
Well, heaven forbid, they've done such a great job. Heaven forbid we lose control. I mean, I thought it was out of control to begin with. That's how we got here. But I guess it's all in the eyes of the beholder. Because, you know, if they lost control and maybe they couldn't have blue lights in their vehicles.
Well, you know,
There's always a negative side, you know. I mean, it was like, hey, you know, if you don't have control, you can't have a blue light.
yeah, well, and you know, Chip, while you and I have said that the only way that we can actually probably turn the city around is to place us in receivership, you know, a few great people in the world have said the same thing, that, you know, you need to raise the village sometimes to start fresh and rebuild from scratch. You know, a famous general actually said that in Vietnam. And, you know, now it's that time. And I think that we as the people of Fall River, on Tuesday, need to storm the city council chamber. And when they go, because you know they're going to do this, when they go to vote in that new position under ordinance, that you have no problem putting in more personnel, no problem spending more money, yet we're looking at receivership. Your own financial people are telling you this. They all know it. So, you know, how can you turn around and say, oh, well, we don't got a problem? You know, what problem do we have? We have absolutely no problem. You know, our retirees are getting screwed on the health care. You know, our pension plan is unfunded. And I'm not going to say underfunded. It's unfunded. I mean, let's be real. We are, you know, Chelsea filed for bankruptcy with $9 million in unpaid debt. We eclipse that by any sense of the imagination.
We have over 500 million, and that was a statement from a former city administrator in Boston with the then president and now city councilor Linda Pereira in attendance at that meeting when he told our delegation, our state reps, and our state senator that the city was $500 million in debt. 500 million. That's $500 million, and it's more now, actually. You know, the problem we have here is politicians, again. You know, they don't want to lose control, and they don't care about money because, hey, it is free money because it's not theirs, it's our money, it's our tax dollars. I find it ironic, the Boston Broadside again, which is rapidly becoming one of my favorite publications. You know, because they kind of bring up some things and remind people of how ridiculously corrupt government can be. And we're on our show, we kind of try to remind everybody when we mention the $120,000 a year jobs that people get after they retire, and then they go to their daughters. And now we look at our city hall, and we find that we have people's wives and daughters with jobs that don't even appear in the budget that are making $80,000. You wonder why we're out of money. Well, this is the headline of the Boston Broadside. I believe it may be its latest copy.
Yes, it is.
And this is what it says. I will show it to you. And look at it. It says, we don't need taxes. We have a spending problem. If you read it, it says House Speaker Bob Gravy King DeLeo and fellow Democratic Massachusetts legislators, enabled by Republican House Minority Leader Bradley Jones, spent like drunken sailors before the election millions for raises and illegals, now threaten to raise taxes due to a, quote, surprise, unquote, $7.65 million deficit. Well, guess what? Jesus, that's not too bad. They've only got a $765 million deficit in the state, and we've got a $500 million deficit in the city. Damn, we're doing a great job of wrecking our economy.
Obviously, we do really
so
well.
obviously, again, we have a spending problem. More jobs, more high-paying jobs, while we're going to ask for pay cuts from the people who provide the services. We have reduced services. And this is the travesty that has become the norm in this city and in this state. It is criminal. And of course, there's another article about our House Speaker when he eliminated his own term limit so he could stay in office, because we have to have power, and we know about power. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And, you know, this is the problem. You get them in, and they're like ticks. You can't get them out.
Well, you know, that's the definition of politics, don't you know? Poly meaning many, ticks meaning bloodsuckers.
That's right. Yeah, that's
you can't get it wrong. But, you know, it's very interesting because we look at the fact that Mayor Sutter issued a request of the City Council to transfer $3.3 million from the free cash, the slush fund, they now call it the stabilization fund, which we know is non-existent, for a $4.5 million deficit, which is expected to climb even more in the school department. Okay, so we're going to put that money in there, but we're still $1.12 million short. So explain to me where this money is going to come from, because I can't see it anywhere. And then we're looking at the city side of the budget, which nobody's talking about, and they're expecting, and the mayor actually went on their radio and said, we're expecting $2.7 million from pay-as-you-throw. Oh, by the way, we can't enforce it. So yeah, you know, you need to buy the bags to support the city. And we're expecting an $800,000 savings. I'm still trying to figure out why in other states across the country, we make money on recycling. But in Massachusetts, more especially in Fall River, we still pay to get rid of it. How come the private sector is making money on recycling, but the cities and towns in Massachusetts, and remember, this is Massachusetts, is not making money? I was given the explanation by Ken Pacheco that the Middle East is controlling the recycling. I guess it's ISIS' fault. And you know, because of that, you know, it's the way it is, and there's nothing they can do about it. And you and I both know that's crap. Yeah. All right? The problem is this. Number one, we have a bottle law in Massachusetts for bottle deposits, which they're trying to add on to. Why do they keep adding on to that? Because that is free cash for the Commonwealth. After 2 years, if that money isn't redeemed, the Commonwealth gets it. So it's another tax. Now, it's 5 cents that we pay. It's 7.5 cents for every redeemed bottle that the supermarket or the liquor store or the redemption agency gets. It's 13 cents from TOMRA and the recycling companies, and they in turn take that and they sell it after being paid to take it back. And then they sell that, and they're making more money on top of it. So how come everybody else makes money on this except for the cities and towns? Why?
Well,
I want to know.
Well, I think we could probably get to the bottom of this, because all we have to do is what we said on the first show we ever did. Follow the money. And we're going to find out who's getting paid and why they're getting paid and who they're paying off. How many campaign contributions, how many shady deals. Again, government is not run for the good of the people again. It's run for the good of the select few. You know, government contracts, city contracts, snowplow contracts, you name it, we've got it. It's all about political insiders making money while the taxpayers suffer. And we get back to the bottom line. Why does this happen? Because we haven't held them accountable. Well, we held Mayor Flanagan accountable, and now we will hold the rest of these people hopefully accountable in the next election. Because if we don't make a turnaround and follow what our new governor has basically said, that we have a spending problem, and if we don't start controlling our spending and cutting the fat, they should all get blue lights to escort them out of their positions as elected officials, because they don't deserve to sit in those chairs. They're not representing our best interests. And I understand that their self-interest is about, if receivership, and believe me, I am not saying I'm a proponent of receivership. It's a horrific thing for any community to go through. However, there have been communities that have been better for it. Most of them have. Because when it gets that far gone, sometimes that is the only thing that will right the ship. Because this is what happens. When your plan to solve our fiscal issues is like the little Dutch boy sticking his finger in the dike. It doesn't work, because every time you stick a finger in that hole, another hole springs out. You can't do this. We need to really get down to a full and independent audit, and we need to make the hard decisions. And that's the fundamental problem that we have. Politicians historically will not make the hard decisions. You know, they're not going to tell the neighborhood associations, listen, I would love to spend $800,000 on a park, but we can't afford it right now. You know, do the best you can. Have a park cleanup. Paint the existing equipment. But we have priorities. We have to pay our bills. We have to keep firefighters on the job. We have to keep police officers. We have to get our trash picked up. We got to keep taxes down so people can actually have money to spend and keep businesses afloat in our community. But no, they don't want to piss off any group that has a group of votes. And that's the problem with politicians. They won't make the tough decisions, you know. And they talk about how this is a business. This is like private industry. That's the biggest crap of horse poo-poo in the world. Because the fact is, in private industry, they're merciless. When a company starts losing money, they will take the hatchet and throw anybody out the door. Because the bottom line with them is profit. And they would fire their own mother if they had to save the company. But the fact is, in a city or a town, profit isn't the bottom line. It's service, delivering essential services to the public. That's the reason that we have a government. There's no other reason for a government. They're not selling us a product. Because if they are, it's a pretty crappy product that they're selling. The fact is, what they're doing is they're supposed to be administering our community and providing us with what we pay our taxes for. Public safety, education, and, you know, public safety to the regard about health-wise is picking up trash and things, providing services. This is not supposed to be this giant employment agency where everybody gets paid and everybody works for their own self-interest. Government is supposed to be streamlined. I read an article in today's paper, commentary, talking about, you know, oh, the mayor needs all these people because you realize we have 20-plus departments that he has to oversee. Come on. We got a department head in every department. They're making big money to run these departments. The mayor doesn't have to run a department. He's got a fire chief to run a fire department. He's got a police chief to run a police department. He's got Kenny Pacheco to run DCM. All departments have department heads. Health and Human Services, Madeline Coelho. We have a whole bunch of department heads that are getting paid fairly well to do the job. And that's called delegation of authority, in case none of you ever took a management course, and that's totally fine. And you do that in order not to have a ton of assistants.
Oh, but wait a minute. We have all kinds of assistants. We have like 4 assistants in the treasurer's department. I mean, all getting paid the same amount of money. So again, you know, we have department heads, and we have assistants, and we have assistants to the assistants, and now we're going for a special assistant to the mayor. I mean, how many special assistants do we need? And at what point do we say, well, you know, $3 million of the budget for special assistant jobs, we're not there yet. We'll go for 5. And, you know, department heads, we don't have enough money out there for that, so let's throw in a few more supervisors. You know, when is it going to stop? And the problem is, I'm so tired of hearing from the city council, well, there's nothing we can do. This is a mayorally strong city. But you are the city council. You control the checkbook. And guess what? Every time you say yes, you send the city down that slippery slope to bankruptcy.
Yeah, you're right. They are complicit. They are complicit because, contrary to what they try to tell you, which is the old-fashioned shuffle that When something goes wrong, it said, hey, I couldn't do anything about it. There's nothing we can do. Our hands are tied. My hands are tied. We were going to get fined. We're under the gun, and every other excuse in the world. But the reality is they do have control. They have the ultimate control, the control of the money. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a city councilor just yesterday, and I reminded that councilor about many years ago in Attleboro, when the Attleboro Fire Union won an arbitration against the city for their contract. And the way the arbitration process is set up, it's binding, but it's only binding on the mayor. It's binding on the mayor, and it's binding on him whether he agrees or disagrees to present it to the city council. Well, the Attleboro City Council at the time took that arbitrator's award and rejected it. They refused to fund it. And guess what? Even though the arbitrator's award favored the union, it was null and void. No money. They had to go back through the whole process again. They ultimately settled. But you know something? We hear about this all the time. We don't have any control. Well, guess what? Yes, you do. You can reject any contract by not funding it. You can reject any budget by not funding it. And you can basically say, unless we get something that is in the best interest of the people, you're not getting it. You know, because we continue to try to fix things by hiring more people, giving them titles to tell us what the obvious is, that we're spending too much money, and then throwing money at everybody, you know, especially around an election year. I just read, to segue in, I just read, again, the SAFER grant has reared its head again. The firefighter union wants the mayor to get another SAFER grant. Well, you know, I understand where they're coming from. They want bodies. But I have to disagree with another SAFER grant, because we're making the same mistake again. If we can't maintain those jobs, don't put them there and give everybody a false sense of security. It's like running your household budget this week on a lottery ticket that you won. Well, that's it. You won it, and once that's spent, you've got no more money coming in, and there goes the budget. Well, the fact is, I've gone before the council, and I took a position that the city should be looking for ways to free up money, city money, money that we know we're going to get, which is prioritizing our money, not for pay raises and not for new jobs and not for 4 people to help the treasurer who got a pay raise, but to put firefighters and police, fund them with our own money like we used to. We're not reinventing the wheel. I'm not asking for something that was never done. I was on a fire department with 300 men, that every single dollar of that funding came from the city, and we didn't lose men. We weren't at the whim of federal government, and everything wasn't 2 years. And I don't care. The SAFER grant, you're not going to get a SAFER grant for the rest of your life. The fact is, you're going to get it, and once you get one, you're lucky if you get 2, and then if you get 2 or 3, they're going to be much lower, and then you're faced again with unemployment, layoffs, unemployment insurance you have to pay for, and you've created another bill. So, you know, let's do it the right way for a change. Let's put firefighters on the job that we can keep. And that SAFER grant is not the way to go. I'm sorry, but that's, you know, that's the way it is.
I agree with you, Chip. You know, and you know, we know that, you know, the federal government's already warned the city under the previous administration several times that you're not getting another one. So for us to go again hat in hand begging for it, I think is wrong. But here's the problem we have with grants, and we have it more especially in the school department than we have it anywhere else. Although in CDA we're having the same problem. When you're hired on a grant, the grant has an endpoint. It is in the grant. We're going to fund this until, you know, June 30th, 2016, or we're going to fund this till June 30th, 2017. So you know when you're hired on that grant's going to end. You should realize that your job is going to end. okay? And the problem we have more, especially in the school department than anywhere else, is we hire these people on grants to be administrators of these grants, because the grants have a component in them that pays them to administrate, which is usually a percentage of the grant, usually in the $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year range. And then they're on for 2 years. The problem is the grant ends, but their job doesn't. Explanation from Meg Mayo Brown School Committee is, well, we need these people for these positions for these jobs. We need, a chief operating officer. We need the assistant to the chief same thing that were happening in the city of Fall River. The only problem is that you know that these jobs are going to end. I firmly believe that the city council should enact an ordinance which states specifically for all departments, school department and elsewhere, that if you're hired on a grant, you're hired on a grant for the cost of the grant. Once the grant expires, your position expires. You're not entitled to unemployment, you're not entitled to benefits or retirement. Now, in the police and fire department, that's a different situation because those are different types of grants. But all the other grants we get, this is where we have our financial problem. We put all these people onto jobs and then they never lose their job. And they still make the same money doing nothing.
Well, that gets us back to the fundamental reason for a grant. A grant is to supplement, not subsidize the department. If you got a grant, you do a little extra because you can do something like that. You can have a pilot program, you can try some experiments, whether it be education, or you can implement some things, and then if it works, maybe you can try to find some funding areas to maintain that, but you've got to find the funding areas. But as you said, especially in the school department, these things, they create all these new positions and these new titles, and they remain forever. And the reality is, why? Our population has decreased over the past 20 years. The city at one time had well over 90,000 people, and now we're dwindling and dwindling and dwindling, and we have one of the highest elderly populations in the Commonwealth, if not the highest. So how many students are we servicing in comparison to when we didn't have all these positions? We are severely, as I said before, severely overmanaged. They can find a set of they can create an alphabet soup with all their titles, COO, POO, LOO, and who cares? You give them money and they'll create a position. And the problem is that position will remain, especially in the school department, forever. It's an automatic funding. And you know why? Because somebody that's politically connected got the job. That's why they never disappear. And when they leave, the next superintendent or the next mayor will have somebody that they're going to stick in a job. Let's see if Perry Long's job gets filled.
It's become havoc. And this havoc has put us now in a position where we're looking at receivership. And if the city council approves any new positions by ordinance, they are just as complicit as they have been for over 20 years. None of these councilors, for their service over the past number of years that they've had, can actually show any positive movement in Fall River. I hate to close on that note, but time is always fleeting around here.
That's right.
I mean, it's just amazing that this is happening. And if the city of Fall River can't look at this and say, hey, maybe we should go into receivership, maybe we should give this serious consideration, maybe it's going to take 10 city taxpayers. But right now I'm going to ask our viewers, and I'm going to ask the people of Fall River to show up Tuesday at the city council meeting and make your voice be heard that you do not want any more spending until they can prove that this budget is sustainable. Not, we're on the right road.
We are underserviced and overmanaged. I pay my taxes as a taxpayer for fire and police. So remember, show up Tuesday night and let's let them know we have a spending problem.
Have a great day.
Stay warm.